lovely to be here and to preside over this fabulous occasion, which is I'm sure very welcome, judging by the numbers that have come out to see it today. So before we get to the actual moment itself with the big switch on, I'm going to welcome onto the stage some very important people with regards to getting the fountain back. First of all, David Ellis, Managing Director of the Ross Development Trust. Welcome, David. We're also going to hear from Professor James Garden, who's the Vice Chair of Edinburgh World Heritage. Great pleasure to introduce the Lord Provost, Frank Ross. Welcome, Frank. And the Lord Provost's invitation, Monsieur Emmanuel Cocher, the French Consul General. Welcome. So it's a terrific day, and we're looking forward to seeing the fountain back up and running after quite a long period of time. But we thought we would just take a little moment to give you a bit of background as to what it has taken, the journey that so many people have gone on to get us here. But a little bit of backstory to the fountain itself. This was originally gifted to the city of Edinburgh in 1869 by Daniel Ross, a local gunmaker. Initially it was kept in storage because it caused a wee bit of outrage at the time due to the scantily clad figures of the ladies up there. It was being described as grossly indecent and disgusting by the Edinburgh gentle people of its day. In 1872, so it was kept in storage for about 3 years, and then in 1872 it was decided that West Princes Street Gardens would provide the perfect home for her, and of course she's remained here ever since. But over the decades, her condition deteriorated significantly, and surveys that were carried out over the past few years indicated that she was in imminent danger of collapse, the result of which most likely would have rendered the fountain unrepairable. So the fountain was switched off in 2010, and a very fragile structure and several leaks, and a survey was carried out as well. Now the scale and full cost of a full restoration, as you might imagine, were quite significant, and due to tight council budgets there was simply not the resources to take on a project of this nature. But thankfully at that time the Ross Development Trust came in, and the work was commissioned by the Trust in association with the City Council and supported by Edinburgh World Heritage. And this brings me to our first guest on stage today. I'd like to welcome Professor James Garden, the Vice Chair of Edinburgh World Heritage. He's going to tell us a little bit of how important the fountain is to them and why they decided to support the project. Thanks very much for joining us, Professor. So, the first question I have to ask, what's the significance of the Ross Fountain within Edinburgh's World Heritage Site?
So Grant, clearly the statue must have caused quite a stir when it was first placed here 146 years ago. As you can see, it's a large flamboyant structure, and it must have actually caused, or did indeed cause, quite a stir. We know that some thought it rather ludicrous, others thought it really fabulous. But it's been an enduring feature of Edinburgh and Princes Street Gardens, and Princes Street Gardens is the finest Georgian garden in the city. This garden serves as an important link between the old town and the new town, which together form Edinburgh's World Heritage Site, which we've been looking after since its inscription in 1995.
So why did Edinburgh World Heritage choose to fund this project?
So this fountain came about because of philanthropy. It came from Daniel Ross's generous donation to the people of Edinburgh, and now that same generosity is being matched by those who wanted to bring the fountain back to its former glory. The Edinburgh World Heritage Trust was very happy to get behind this conservation project and to help to fund the work. It's a unique structure with many pieces, so it had to be properly conserved by experts using appropriate materials, and we're pleased at how professionally and timely the project has been completed, and we're proud obviously to have been involved. Edinburgh World Heritage Trust has actually supported the development of some 1,500 projects on the World Heritage Site, and we're really very glad, very pleased to be involved with this project and to add this project to our portfolio today.
Professor, thanks very much indeed for that insight. Thank you. It will trigger lots of memories for lots of us, including our own Lord Provost, who's here with us today. Thanks for joining us. Lord Provost, can you tell us what the restoration of this fountain is going to mean to the city?
This is a truly historic event. We have over 200 statues and monuments scattered across our city, and each one of those represents part of our history and heritage. But I think this fountain which has to be an iconic fountain in this fantastic location, really will be a destination here for both citizens and visitors alike. And I think we have to congratulate the Ross Development Trust for their foresight and the efforts that they have put into creating this fantastic restoration. It really is going to become I think this site here, if it's not already a site for taking photographs of the castle, will now become the #1 spot in the city.
It does look fabulous, and not just the fountain itself, the work that's gone underneath it, but also the landscaping as well. Our gardeners have been very busy.
The City of Edinburgh Council gardeners have been fantastically busy. They always do a great job. The gardens themselves are tremendous, especially at this time of year. Earlier this week at the east end of the gardens, we unveiled this year's summer clock, which represents the 100 years of signing the armistice and the end of the First World War, and it represents the city's partnership with Poppy Scotland. It's an excellent clock. Please do take an opportunity to walk to the other end of the gardens and have a look at it. But the flowers that they have around the fountain here represent another partnership we have, which is with Glow Gold. Gold is the international colour of childhood cancer awareness, and the flowers here are representing that project.
So let's hear it for the gardeners. So we mentioned that the fountain is French in its origin. We're pleased to be joined by French Consulate General Monsieur Emmanuel Cocher. Welcome.
Thank you.
It does look fabulous in the sunshine today. It's so nice to have it back. How does it feel to see such a wonderful piece of French history here right in the middle of Edinburgh?
Well, thank you. There are many pieces of French history in Edinburgh. Well, you will know the castle has French history. Obviously, the renovation of the old town had French connections. Sir Patrick Geddes had inspired the French and had been inspired by the French in his in the spreading of his conservation ideas. But I'd like to say, for me, what's most important is to remind us that the Franco-Scottish relation has always been made not only of military alliances, the Lord Provost has rightly recalled the common efforts in World War wars, but also it's always been based on industry and the arts. And I think this fountain is very much an illustration of industry and the arts. And Scotland, like France, and still is a nation of engineers. And this is a major engineering achievement, not only an artistic achievement, but an engineering achievement. And I'm glad to know that what was considered unrepairable has been repaired, which also is a major engineering achievement.
Emmanuel, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. So we mentioned the Ross Development Trust earlier on, and the trust was established by local individuals with the single aim of raising the necessary investment to revitalise West Princes Street Gardens. The restoration of the much-loved fountain was an obvious starting point. However, it was to be saved, and then it was going to require a privately managed and funded project to get it done. The Ross Development Trust raised £2 million in a year and successfully managed this project from start to finish, and as a result, this wonderful restoration for the enjoyment of the people of this city was funded 100% privately. I'm delighted to introduce the Managing Director of the Ross Development Trust to say a few words about their work and about the lengthy process involved in this. David, over to you.
Thank you very much, Grant. Obviously we've been doing a lot of work over the last year, but to explain to you what we've been doing in more detail, it's probably best to split our work into two main parts. There's the work that we've done structurally on the fountain itself, which you can all see beside me here, and there's also the work that we've been doing below our feet in terms of the foundations and improving the infrastructure and the pumping system that helps the fountain operate. So, to give you an idea, we were committed from the very beginning to do a complete and comprehensive restoration so that no project work would need to be done in future to repair it again. We realised that the best way to do this was going to be to completely dismantle the entire monument. For those of you that don't know, the fountain consists of 122 different parts, and they're all bolted together just like a big 3D jigsaw, as you can see here. So our first challenge was to completely dismantle the entire thing. So we brought a crane into the garden and we started doing that piece by piece. what we realised is that the bolts that hold all the pieces together were actually, in most part, completely destroyed and had been eroded through the time that they'd spent on site here. So our first challenge was to take the whole thing down without actually dropping any parts or anything falling off. And that was an indication for us just how important it was that we came around at this time to do the work. Obviously, if the pieces are not being held together, there's a risk that might start to fall down. And as we mentioned earlier, that could cause damage that would not be able to be repaired. The second challenge that we had was potentially our fault in the fact that we chose a contractor that's based down in Wigan. Now, they have a long history of doing fantastic restoration projects and had recently restored a fountain in Glasgow, so it was a no-brainer that we went with them. However, what we then had to do was take all the pieces individually, all 122 of them, down to Wigan for them to be restored. Again, another challenge. What we realised when they got there is that the damage that we had perceived and that we'd seen from the surveys in no way represented how badly damaged the fountain actually was. It was amazing to see every one of those pieces needed repaired, some almost completely recasted. So to the team that worked on that down in Wigan, a fantastic job. Really, it was baffling for me to see the level of skill and craftsmanship involved in doing that. I mean, these guys were really artists in being able to repair all the pieces. It was a fantastic job and a mammoth task, but I think we can all agree they've done a wonderful job. So, after the pieces were all repaired, it was then a case of painting. Now, I don't know how many of you remember, but the fountain, when we took it away, was gold, completely in colour. Now, that was by no means an original colour, but more a method of a paint that had been applied a few decades ago to try and prevent and stop weathering. Now, our commitment to a full and comprehensive restoration meant that we really wanted to capture what the fountain would have been originally, as close as we possibly could. So we did a huge amount of research working with Historic Environment Scotland, with our friends at World Heritage, with the council, and actually by speaking to foundries in and around France that would have produced fountains from this period at the same time as ours was made. So we've came up with a paint, the colour scheme, and I think they've done a fantastic job. And yes, it is different, but I think what it does is it highlights the intricate detail of the castings that are there. Now, I remember speaking to one of our restoration experts, and he said that the top model that you see up there is probably the most complicated cast iron structure or figurine anywhere in the world. So to be able to highlight that detail for me is something really special, and I think it adds something completely new to this fountain. As well, so I think that's a massive positive for us. The work that's been going on underground. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware of the problems and the reasoning why the fountain was not working. If you can believe it, back in 1869 or 1870 when it was brought to Edinburgh, the fountain was literally just placed on the ground. Now, the soil below our feet is extremely soft. For those of you that know that this used to be a loch, so the ground condition is very, very soft. The slope of the hill means that the fountain is leaning towards the castle. And if you combine that with the fact that there was no proper foundations, over the last number of years, I don't know how long, the fountain has started to tilt to one side. So it's actually, before we took it away, it was leaning towards the castle. That, combined with the issue we have of the pieces not being held together properly, meant that there was an imminent risk of it collapsing. What else we've done is that we've put in a new pump system. So before, and the reason it was not kept on properly and had to keep stopping is because the system and the infrastructure underneath is over 100 years old, and it was just not sustainable to use that infrastructure to run the new fountain. So what we did is we put in a brand new state-of-the-art pumping system. To give you an idea of how it used to work before, if you guys can imagine running a bath, for example, in your house. Turn the tap on, the bath fills up, and at the end of the bath the water just drains away. Well, that's exactly how the fountain was operating before. The water would come off the mains, it would go up through the fountain and then be drained off. And I mean, at the time in the 1870s, it was seen as a prosperous sign that Edinburgh could afford to do this, but we were wasting 12,000 litres of water every single hour by having the fountain operate that way. So what we've done is we've put in a closed loop system so the water fills up and it will be continually recycled and cleaned throughout the fountain. It'll be continually cleaned throughout the fountain. So the positive thing for us there is that we will be able to run the fountain 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for generations to come, and that's something that we're really excited about. So I just want to say a quick thank you to everybody that's been involved there, from our team at Lost Art who did the restoration, to our team that did the work on site at Kelson Technical, to our engineers, Applied Engineering Design, our project managers and QS at Thomson Gray, a fantastic team effort, and I think everyone's pretty much still speaking to each other, so I think that's a sign of a successful project, so thank you to all of them.
And let's give them a round of applause as well. We're nearly there. We're just about to get to the moment of turn on.
We've seen a colleague here from Edinburgh World Heritage. Obviously they were a first point of call. We've worked closely with Edinburgh World Heritage, not just on this project, but other work we're trying to do in the garden. So I actually picked up the phone to their director, Adam Wilkinson, to discuss the project, and quite potentially cheekily asked him if there was any chance we could get some money from him, to which he responded, I mean, yeah, probably, we'd be happy to give money to that. So I filled out a few forms, sent them in, and within a few weeks we'd received a six-figure grant, so I was delighted with that. A big contribution, not just in terms of the money, but actually to have their support was a wonderful thing, being right in the centre of the UNESCO World Heritage Site and being a heritage project. The rest of the money, nearly 1.8 million, has all come from private individuals, a very small group, some of which I'm delighted are here today. And really, it's them that we owe the thanks to this whole project. I mean, as much as the guys that did the work loved doing it, without the money there was no way that was going to happen. So to the people that have given the money to make this happen, I mean, eternally grateful. I think everyone here today, everyone that visits next week or in a year's time or in 10 years' time will be delighted for all the work, for all the money that you've given to make this possible, because quite simply without you it just doesn't happen. So thank you again. They've asked for absolutely nothing in return. That's one of the amazing things about these people. I think although the fountain was gifted to the city 150 years ago, many things have changed in that time, but one thing that hasn't changed is the attitude of some individuals to want to give back, to help continue improving the city and make changes, and these people have certainly done that, so thank you. I mentioned they've asked for nothing. Yeah. Now, they've asked for absolutely nothing in return, but one thing I asked of them is that if it would be possible if some of their younger relatives would be interested in being the ones to switch it on. I think it's absolutely the least that we could do, and a small memory for them. So I would like to invite a selection of younger people to come up onto the stage to be the ones to switch it on. When we turn the water on, it should all come out at the same time, or near enough. There is a number of outlets that are overspill outlets, so the lion's heads around the bases, and then the underside of the bowls where the faces are, they only start to spout with water once the levels in the bowls raises beyond a certain point. So it'll be probably 5 or 6 minutes, I'd imagine, before you see the full effect of the fountain working. I'm hoping for water pretty much straight away.
Okay, so the plan is, because it takes 5 minutes perhaps for it to go into full effect, and for that all important final stage where the water comes out, we're going to ask the guys from NGA who are here with us to support this. They're going to provide some musical accompaniment in the preceding few minutes, so we can now ask our very special guests, some of all ages. Look at the size of you. You're cute as a button, aren't you? Hiya, what's your name?
Ryan.
There we are. Ryan, okay, that's good. Said that without even moving his lips. Okay, so let's do this. We've waited long enough. We thank you for your patience, but I think it was very important that we just really give a real good backstory to why this has happened, how this has happened, also the importance of this magnificent fountain to our fantastic city. And it will be and also one little note about the painting that we talked about, which has created a lot of discussion, is that this, similar to how they do the Forth Rail Bridge now, is this won't have to be painted year in, year out. This will last for somewhere in the region of about 25 years before it wears?
Before top up, yeah.
Before it needs a top up, so it's going to look absolutely pristine for quite a significant amount of time, which is going to be great. So are we ready? I think we've got to do this in the time-tested tradition of doing a nice little countdown, so our volunteers can start turning the tap to once and for all get the Ross fountain back and flowing again. So let's do it from 5 down to 1. Are you ready, guys? You ready? Okay, here we go. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Turn the tap. Keep turning. Keep turning. Do we see the first? There it comes. And the water is starting to flow. So the fountain is on. Your job has been done. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Watch the wee man there. Perfect. So we can now ask, thank you again for all our guests who joined us on stage. Thank you very much indeed to our special guests. And let's welcome our talented individuals from the MG Academy to give us some musical accompaniment as the fountain really kicks in. Thank you, guys.
Da da da